Good morning, Tayyid Bocharim and Tayyid Tamimim, or for all those who want to participate and listen to the Shuirim. We're going to start today give a shiur on Shuirim itself, on the Shuirim of what we're going to need to know for Kezayis, Revi'is, and all the Yonim of Shuirim for Pesach. Of course, this should have had a whole Akdama about the Zman that we are living in now, as Megreitzach to Geula Shlema, to Pesach, but there's no time for it now, maybe another time. I'm going to start with the background of all the halachas, and then we'll get to details of practical halacha, kezayis matzah, kezayis moder, and the revi'is for keirech, and for revi'is for dalat kaisus, and the kezayis for keirech and dalat and afikoymen, and so on. First, we will begin with the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch. It's kedai for people to take out the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch and Siman Tov Pei Vav to follow along inside this shtickle. I am not an expert in computers, so I don't know how to make it over here to give you all the print that goes along with the shiur. Maybe those who record it, maybe they will fill it in later. We'll begin now with Siman Tov Pei Vav. Din shiur kezayis iboy bei sifim. Zog the Alter Rebbe, Sif Aleph. Kezayis or Omer b'chol makim, a kezayis that it says in any place in Torah, Einoi loy katan v'loy gadol. Elu beinuni, as Torah always measures b'derech hamitzua, which is a beinuni. V'zehu zayis hanikra aguri, that's called zayis aguri. Why? Sheshamnoi agur b'toiche, because the shemen that in that zayis is not small enough. It's not small that the shemen is not nikir yet. It has already the shemen is already agur b'toich hazayis. Zog the Alter Rebbe v'shiuroi yesh oimrim shikachatze beitze v'yesh oimrim shipoches me'at mishlish. So I'll make a shtickle akdama. And Simashi and Samaches and Hilches Erevin, there are two shittas Rambam and shittas HaTosfos. Of what is the shiur of mozain shtei sudes, which you need to make an erev, you have to put down a mozain of shtei sudes. Tosfos is of the opinion that the mozain shtei sudes, everybody knows that shittas HaTosfos is 8 beitzim. It's really a little more. And shittas HaRambam is that shiur mozain shtei sudes is 6 beitzim. Based on these two opinions, we will derive what the shiur of a kezayis is. Again, over there it's the discussion about a shiur of a mozain shtei sudes, which based on this is also the shiur of kedei achilas pras. A pras means a half. In the olden days, you bought a loaf of bread, which was for shtei sudes for the day. Only in Shabbos we have 3 sudes. Middle of the week we have 2 sudos, so a whole loaf of bread is mozain shtei sudos. A pras means a half, like we say in Pitum Akteris, pras b'shachris, pras bein warbayim, helped. And b'meila mozain shtei sudos. If a mozain shtei sudos is 8 beitzim or a little more, then a pras is dalat beitzim. If a mozain shtei sudos is 6 beitzim, then a pras is 3 beitzim. But we're going to deal with that later, of the shiur of Kedei Achilas Pras. Now we're dealing with the shiur of Kezayis, which is derived from that halacha. Says the Alter Rebbe. The Fimashin is bar b'simishin samaches shemozen shtei sudas shel erev. The mozen of shtei sudas from erev shehu yutches groigeres, which are 18 groigeres, which is a dried fig. Yesh behem keshisha beitzim. So 18 groigeres have in it the size of shisha beitzim, according to Shittas HaRambam. Imkein, hagroigeres hushlish beitzim. How? Because 3 times 6 is 18. So if 18 groigeres are pushed in to 6 beitzim, which means every beitzah has 3 groigeres. So every groigeres is 1/3 of a beitzah. That's one klal according to this Rambam. And then there's another klal. Chazal tell us, v'hazayis hu koten ma'gregeres. Chazal tell us that a zayis is a little smaller than a gregeris. Down at the bottom of the Horus Ches, it says it's mashma like this in Shabbos Tzadik Aleph, and Atos is an Erev and a Yuma. That a Zayis is a little smaller than a gregeris. So if that's the case, we derive that a gregeris is a third of a beitza. So we know that a Zayis is a little less than a third of a beitza, which is quite a small shear for a Kazayis. Why the Alter Rebbe calls it Harishayna, over here it's the second shitta. But in Shin Samaches, Shittas HaTosfos is brought first. L'sfis svara Harishayna, HaYutches Greger shall stay Sudas shall Erev, who yoiser mi Yutches Chatzoy Beitza. It's a little more than 18 half Beitza, which the Cheshbon is also going to be very simple. Yutches Beitza, Yutches Gregeris, is a little more than Yutches half Beitza. A little more than Yutches half Beitza, which means that every Gregeris is be'erech a drop more than a half a Beitza. Simple. Because Yutches Gregeris has to fit in to Yutches a little more than Yutches half Beitza. Yeah? So half Beitzim, half of 18 is 9. So it's a cheshbon of be'erech 9. And again, Ikvan is, and again, we know the klal already that what? That a kezayis is a little less than a gregeris, as we said before. So it's be'erech, this was a little more than a half a beitza. So be'erech, a half a beitza is a kezayis. So this is Shittas HaRishonim before we talk practical, before we talk Bizman Hazeh. So in Shittas HaRishonim we have two Shittas. Whether a kezayis is a little bit less than a shlish beitza, or it is a chotzi beitza. Sagt der Alter Rebbe Kvanas Bar, bis zum Mishin Samaches v'Tovtes, Simen Tovtes, she'ikir iska oimrim she'ein tzarech yoser mikeshisha beitzim la'erev. By an erev, we pasken lekula, because erev is midrabanan, that in Mozen shtei sudas you don't need more than 6 beitzim la'erev. Why? If you show erev with divrei seifrim v'holchem b'lehakel. The Imkain says the Alter Rebbe b'morer, shehu medivrei seifrim. Morer is also medivrei seifrim. In v'chein kol davar shehu medivrei seifrim. Sheshiura is b'kizayis. Is yashlismach alo oimrim shupaches me'at, a little bit less mishlish beitz, because the klal is sveike de rabbanon lekula, azoim chazal gepasket. B'meila, that's where when they make a halacha, we go according to their klal, sveike de rabbanon lekula, and that's the halacha that'll drop less than a shlish beitza, is the kizayis for all midday de rabbanon. Aval b'matzah shehim min atera, v'chein kol davar shehu min atera. Matzah, and so to everything which is menatera. Yesh lahachmir kisvara rishoyne. We have to go mimachmir that a kizayis should mean a half a beitza. Now, just before we continue weiter, the Mishnah Beruda, interessant, he paskens that legabe morer alein, you should need to take a half a kizayis. For keirech, you should need only a pachas mishlish beitza. Why is that? Let's learn the next shtickle of the Alter Rebbe. Abel inyan bracha hachrena, says the Alter Rebbe. It comes to every birchas anhena, not just Pesach. A birchas hamazon, which with the rabbanon is shiurei b'kezayis, when I tell you it's kedei svia, but with the rabbanon you have to bench already when you ate the kezayis, is the klal sofik brachas lahakol. Here it works the opposite. Sofik over here, lahakol means not to say a bracha, because a bracha could be a sofik of a bracha levatala. So the kula over here is if you're not sure, you don't make a bracha achrein. Oy bazoi. So v'lo yevarech at sheyechel kechatzi beitze. So even though brachas is the rabbanon, by the rabbanons we say shlish beitze, here's the opposite. Because safek brachas lahakol, we should not say a bracha. The kula is we're trying not to say an extra bracha. In b'meila, until you're sure that you're mechuyev bracha, which means you ate a chatzi zayis, a chatzi beitze, you should not make a bracha. Says the Alter Rebbe, leketchila yesh lizoyer, shlo lahachnis atzmo ledei sofik bracha. A person is not allowed to get himself into a sofik bracha. And v'yoichel kechatzi beitze, and he should eat a chatzi beitze anytime he eats, either a chatzi beitze or harbe pachas mishlish beitze, a lot more than pachas mishlish beitze, because a little pachas mishlish beitze is already a sofik. So it's to be harbe pachas mishlish beitze, Bedava shein tzorich kezayis. Versteht sich, if it's something which is a chiyuv mitzvah that you need a kezayis for it, then you can't do that. Adrab, you have to be machmir. But if it's something you're just eating, l'tiyoven, you want to eat, so don't eat a shear which is in the middle, which you don't know whether you have to make a bracha achreina. Not either eat much less or much more. Just the milsa de beduchasa, which we didn't start with, so it's kedai to say it at least right now. They say there was a Rav who never went to chuppah, to a chuppah. They asked him why he doesn't go to a chuppah. He said, ich lass dich nicht rein in den Yonim. So they didn't understand what that means. A chuppah, a Rav, a mitzvah der Reise, Kiddushin, why doesn't he want to be there? But nicht verstanden. So somebody thought, ich weiß, Tznias, there's a Kala there, there's Freuen there, ich weiß was. So finally somebody confronted this Rav. So he said like this, every Rav that shows up to a chuppah, lost sich rein in a Sofik bracha. He doesn't know if he's going to get a bracha or not. Chas v'sholom. So he says, I don't want to get involved in a Sofik bracha. Okay, that's the Nilsa de B'dichus. But back to the halacha. So the Alter Rebbe says when it comes to brachas, Sofik brachas lahakol, we don't want to eat an in-between shear. Yeah, but so only if we eat a chatzizayis, we can make a bracha chreina. Based on this, they explain the Mishnah Berurah that since on Morer we make a bracha, ashikadishanu b'mitzoyse v'tzivanu al achilas Morer, and the chanama mitzad the mitzvah of Morer is a mitzvah derabanan, mitzad that you could have had a shlish beitz. As the Alter Rebbe sagt. But mitzad the bracha you're making on it, the chsafik brachas lahakol. How do you know that you yaitza for sure? And therefore mitzad the bracha you should eat a full kezayis, meaning a chumradiki kezayis, which is a chatzah beitza. And by kerech, which we make no bracha, then he says you could take a shlish beitza. So too, tafikayman, which is no brachas on it, you could go with a shlish beitza. However, we must say that the Alter Rebbe learns, I didn't look up in many mefarsha, but I think that's the Pashut Pshat, l'chura, that the Alter Rebbe learns that when we say on a mitzvah, Sveike de Rabbana l'kula, and we're not done over a birchas on the hanan, we're not done about eating, which by eating, the eating is not a mitzvah at all. The whole shail is on the bracha. So when we're done on the bracha, we say Sofik brachas lahakol. You can't make a bracha unless you're for sure. But when we're done on a mitzvah, is ois gepasken when atayr Sofik brachas lahakol, that achila smorer is a sveike der Rabbanan. So the Rabbanan say, go ahead and eat a shlish beitza, pachas me'at, and this is the mitzvah. This is how this mitzvah goes. Once it's ois gepasken that this is the mitzvah, then this is with the Rabbanan. They said this is how this mitzvah goes. Then of course you could make ashikidishonu b'mitzvah because the Sofik was not on the bracha. Sofik was on the achila. And therefore the achila is ausgepasst in Sofik brachas lahakol. Al kaponim as steht in Alter Rebbe. Unless einer will sich dingen und reinquetschen, we can also sagen, I'm not sure, but we can reinlernen also, it's a stickel deichig. Der Hanama, the one who's sitting, the Rosh HaMesubim, and he makes all the brachas. He has a crowd, like Amolige Zeit, that Amaratzim, Noshim, they did no brachas, and they were yoytze the bracha from the Rosh HaMesubim. The Mele Hitaka should take a chatzizayis, because he's making a bracha. But there'll be many people who are going to eat, and their shaila is only whether they're yoytze or not. For being yoytze, that's all the Alter Rebbe is saying. For being yoytze, a shlish beitza is enough. And the chanama for the bracha, that's a different story. But the Alter Rebbe is a l'shoinei azav. This was stubborn that that's what he means. Okay. Sag weiter the Alter Rebbe. Kein tzarich l'zoh l'dagdik b'shar davar shashir godel hu kula. So too we have to be medagdik by anything which the shear, which works the opposite way around. That the big shear is a kula, and the smaller shear is a chumrah if it's a deraisa. The shear cotton hu chumrah. Kigoyim bir chametz. We know that we have chametz a shear kezayis is mechuyev is bir chametz a deraisa. If it's less than a kezayis, it's only b'derabbanan. So therefore, it's negay in many halachas when you find on Pesach, whether it's a deraisa or a derabbanan, how do you have to handle it? And b'meila, if you have a shlish beitza and a chanama, it's a suffix. But over here, you're trying to be not over and bal yirah bal yamatzah. So adarabba, the chumrah is that even a smaller shear might be already a deraisa. So over here, sveike deraisa lechumrah is not a chatzi beitza. Over here, sveike deraisa lechumrah is dafke a shlish beitza. Because adarabba, it's possible that a smaller shear is already bal yirah bal yamatzah. Siv base. And with this, we're going to finish inside the Alter Rebbe. Siv base. Tzarich lizoyer, kishemeshai kizayis b'yirokis. When you meshai the kizayis by the yirokis of mother, sheyoytze b'em yidei chayvus mother, sheyemayech avir shebein alei yirokis. You crumble together many yirokis. There's a lot of space in it. You have to crumble it so strongly, squeeze it, that all the air goes out. V'yishar kshir kizayis b'yirokis atzmam. V'loy ba'avir shebeneim. You shouldn't include the empty space, the air. V'cheinim yash cholol b'matzah. Now, the olden matzahs was not exactly like our matzah. Our matzah, if you have a big cholol, it's a nefuach, it's a shayla of the matzah. The old matzah was different, and you were able to have a little shape in it. Maybe it looked like a pita bread. If you made it, it could have had something, an opening in the middle, which is not because it was oivgeblasen, not because it was blown up as a shayla of chametz, but it has a hole in it. Is ein acholol mitzaref lekizayis. You have to crumble it. You have to squeeze it together to take out that air. Now, an important halacha that the Alter Rebbe adds, it's in a sigrayim, but as is angenommen, aval im ein cholol b'matzah, if there's no cholol in the matzah, afile hiraka v'asuya kisfoik, even if it's very soft. Here we see clearly that the old matzahs were soft like pita bread or something. V'asuya kisfoik, and it's made like a sponge. Then it has tiny, tiny little holes like a sponge. Ein tzarich lamacher. That's the natural way of this Michael. I also saw, I think, Talmidim of the Chassam Sofer, I think the Maram Shik, he brings down that the Chassam Sofer, they used to give him a piece of cake. You looked at it, it was Mashayr. This is a kazayis. I never heard them, says anybody that squeezed the sponge cake and see what it is after you squeeze it. The way it looks, the way it is, the tiny holes, or bread, or challah, that's natural, the way it looks. That's how you Mashayr the shear of kazayis. Before we go further, what do we see over here? A very interesting halacha. Rav Chaim Noah in the Shuirim and in all the other places makes it very clear, and as nemanon ala paskim, that Shuirim, when we talk about kizayis and kibetza, does not go by weight. It's not the weight of a beitza, it's the volume of how much it is. How much water will be displaced when you put a beitza into water, how much water comes out, that is the shear of the beitza. So too with the kazayis. How do we know that? We can see it from this sieve. If it will be a question of weight, air would not make any difference whether it has an air bubble in it or not. It will still weigh the same. Elamai, if you tell us to take out the air, and you tell us by sfoik you don't have to take out, is the whole discussion about air is a raya that we're looking at the size. So we have to make sure that the size is the richtige size. It's not off, because it's not included air in it, which would not be the right size. Atkan is for the Rishonim. What we see from halacha in Shulchan Aruch. Let's go to one more sif in Shulchan Aruch of the Alter Rebbe in Siman Tov Ayin Beis, Sif Yudches. I'm not going to learn the whole sieve inside in detail. It's a mathematical cheshbon. A lot of Bacharim are going to get confused, especially those who didn't go through exactly all the classes in math. Sieve Yudches in Siman Tov Ayin Beis. Shiur HaKois Shemachzik Revi'is. The shear of HaKois, which holds in it the shear of Revi'is, is Arkoi, the length, it's Kireichev Beis Gudlin. The shear of an Agudl is measured by the white part of a finger from here to here, from here to here. That's called agudel. Anytime it says in poskim etzba, that's what it means. Etzba and agudel is the same, and it's measured at the widest part of the agudel, the width of it. So the shear of a kois, in order to make a kois, which has in it the volume of a reviz. Now let me just make a hagdama. Volume could be measured in two ways. You take a beitza. If you have a beitza, you know something is a sheer beitza. Put it into water. Have a bigger, you have a full pot, exactly full, or whatever different ways of doing it. And you have another bigger pot. This pot is put into a bigger pot. You put slowly an egg in there. Whatever is displaced and comes out, that is the shear of the volume which the egg replaced. So that's the shear of a volume. Yeah? So, but when you want to make like a keli, how to measure how much water is a shear of a beitza. So this will have a measure of shetach. It means how wide is the keli, how tall is the keli, how the length and the width, and the height. How big is it that will hold in it, that will have machzik in it, the shear, which is the volume of a revis. Yeah, so when a company makes a measuring cup, so that has a size, how tall is till 1 ounce, how wide is it, how long is it, and how tall is it? Yeah. So that's called measuring in cubic feet, cubic inches, cubic centimeter, cubic centimeters, and so on. Yeah. In other words, if you want to put down on the floor tiles, you cannot tell me the floor is 10 feet long because they only know the length. How many tiles do you need? If you tell me that the floor is 10 long, 10 wide, I know it's a 10 by 10. Yeah. That's called squared. Then I know I'm going to need 100 tiles. 10 tiles long and 10 tiles wide. So it's 10 times 10. Then I know that I need 100 tiles. That's called squared. If I want to fill up an entire room, for example, gas, they measure gas, how much gas would fill up a room? Cubic feet. This room has so many cubic feet. So imagine if you have 10 tiles, the length, 10 tiles the width, and 10 tiles also each one a foot thick in the height. That's called 10 times 10 times 10. That's called 10 to the power of 3. That's called cubic feet. So you could do with everything. So now you know how to make a measuring cup. It has a certain measure of cubic ounces, cubic centimeters, and so on. It's measured by a measure of shetach. We're using the word inches or centimeters. Yeah. However, when it fills up, when you make that cup, which has a certain measure of certain height, and certain width, and certain length, now I know what the teich holds in it, what's machzik. So Chazal tell us how to make a kois, talking about midas hashetach, not talking about midas of the numbers of volume, but talking the midah of shetach. How do you build such a cup of cubic size? And that will tell us that holds a revis. So the Alter Rebbe says over here, Shir HaKois Shemachzik revis is Arkoi, the length, the bottom length, is Kereichev Beis Gidlin, like the width of 2 such Gudlin. In Verach, by the width of the Kois is also Kereichev Beis Gudlin. V'Gavoy, but the height of this Kos is Kereichev Beis Gudlin, the same height of 2 Gudlin, plus 1 Chatzi Gudl, and plus 1/5 of a Gudl. The Chomish Gudl, which that's 2.7 Gudlin. Why? Because 2 Gudlin is 2 Gudlin. 0.5, a half, a Chatzi Gudl is 0.5. A Chomish, a fifth, is 0.2. So that's together. 0.2 plus 0.5 is 2.7. So a kois, which has 2 Gudlin by 2 Gudlin by 2.7 Gudlin the height, that's a kois which holds in it the revis. The shear is there who shakois meruba al pnei kol gavur. But this is only if the kois is straight, equal, and it's square all around. A kois which is a circle, then you're cutting off 4 corners. It's still 2 Gudlin by 2 Gudlin, but the corners are missing. Yeah, the alachsin of a square you get much more than you get when you get a circle by an eagle, and therefore you have to add another shear, which is another quarter. Which that cheshbon I'm not going to get into now. That's not negaya to us. We're not building cases. We're buying cases which have full measures. Okay. So what do we see from over here? That Chazal, when they told us how to make a case, they clearly told us how to build it based on Gudlin. It's like the Gemara. The Gemara is a famous Gemara in Arve Psachim Daf Kuftes Amid Beis. The Gemara makes the cheshbon along Rashbam, Rashi, a Tosfos based on a sheer mikveh. That a sheer mikveh, which is a memsa, which a saw is 6 kaf, a kaf is 4 luk, a luk is 6 beitzim. Yeah. So based on this, and we know that a mikveh is amma al amma, 1 amma this way, 1 amma this way, berum gimel amas, 3 amas the height. So based on this, we figured out that a shear of a kois, which is a revi's haluk. What is a revi's haluk? Now again, we know that a luk has shisha beitzim. What is a quarter of 6? Is 1.5. So we know every revi's is 1.5 beitzim. So now we have 2 languages to express a shear revi's. Either Pashat we measure with the volume of a beitzah, 1.5 beitzah. That's the shear of the volume, which kommt arois from the cheshm, that's called the revi's haluk. But the way the Gemara tells us how to build a cup, how to create a cup which is going to measure that without having to throw a beitzah into a pot, how do we create such a measure? Through a measure of shetach, cubic shetach, as we mentioned before. How do we do that? Says the Gemara, the cheshm that the Alter Rebbe just explained now. Beis gudlim al beis gudlim times 2.7 gudlim in the height. Yeah? And by a round cup, it's a little different. They have to add another quarter. Okay. Now, Atkan is from Shulchan Aruch. The tzlach, famous tzlach, the Noide Yehuda, and the end of Pesachim, he writes that he sat down, it's before Pesach, and everybody is busy with Shuirim. Everybody wants to know to have the right, proper shear, a kais, and all the halachas. So he decided to sit down and to measure a cup, and to measure Shuirim. So he took his finger, and this finger, 2 gudler, 2 this size, made on his size, and he made a cup, 2 gudler by 2 gudler by 2.7 gudler. And the cheshbon came out, and to him, he made the cheshbon that around 2.4, 2.5, we'll discuss later in the Hemshech of Ashir more details, but around 2.4, 2.5 centimeters is a agudel according to the Noide Yehuda. Based on this, he made a cup, and then he put in the volume of an egg and a half, and he saw that it fits way more than an egg and a half in this volume of this cup. So now we have 2 Gemaras contradicting each other. The Gemara says a revi'is is a revi'is haluk, which a luk is shisha beitzim, which means a revi'is is a beitzah umechza. And you make the cup that Chazal tell us exactly in Shulchan Aruch how to make this cup. Chazal tell us in Gemara, the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch, yeah, and it comes out that it holds much more. So the Noide Yehuda came to a conclusion only lechumra, to be machmer, not to be mekel on this, that we must say that niskatnu habeitzim. He has a whole cheshbon that people stayed the same for the last few hundred years. People didn't change in their size, but niskatnu habeitzim, the beitzim became much smaller. In Bamela, the cheshbon that it's almost double. That a shir revi'is is not a beitzim echza, it's almost 3 beitzim. Because if you fill up that cup of 2.5 of an agudel 2.5 centimeters, which means it's 5 centimeters by 5 centimeters, and you know the of such a cup, you'll see that you get almost double. And based on this, became the shir which the Welt is known today as the shir of the Chazon Ish. It's not the Chazon Ish shir; it's the old Noide Yehuda's shir. He played with it. He measured a lot of people, and he measured to be that it's a 2.55 or something like that, whatever it is. So the major machlokes that went on in his time was between Rebbe Chaim Noah, which is the Ketzos HaShulchan, which is a Lubavitcher Chassid, that he wrote Shurei Torah, he wrote, and he was Mavarer, and his shitta was that the way all the Rishonim, and the way you look into the Tur, you look into Tosfos Yom Tov, which wasn't so long ago, and it's hard to say that the chickens change in size in 100 years or 70, 80 years. In the Tur, okay, the Tur was a few hundred years. But the Tosfos Yom Tov and other later Achreinim, they write, how do you measure a shir challah, which is mem gimel beitza v'chemesh beitza? They tell you how to take a pot, fill it up with water, throw in mem gimel beitza, a whole cheshbon, which says in Shulchan Aruch how to do it. And nobody mentions that it's not our beitza, we need double. So he comes to a conclusion, and he measured also fingers, and he said that an agudel is not 2.5 beitza, it's only, 2.5 centimeters, it's only 2 centimeters. And this tiny is very hard to measure over here. You measure, this finger is called amma, As you know, Gudel, Etzba, Amma, on Kemutza, and Zeres. Why is this finger called Amma or Amma? Because you measure an Amma from a person, you measure from here to here. This is an Amma. An Amma has 6 Tfachim. Each Tefach is 4 Gudlim. So an Amma has 24 Gudlim. That's easier to measure and make much less mistakes if you go and measure a Gudlim, that you can make by each Agudl a big mistake. Over here, you can be off with Tamashos. So he says if you measure most people, Beinonim, from here to here, you'll get to 48 centimeters, which means 24 Agudlim is 48 centimeters, which means every Agudl is 2 centimeters. Now, based on this, there's a huge machlokes when it comes to everything. When it comes to making machitza for a native, to build a sukkah, you have to have a machitza of 10 tfachim. A sukkah has to be zayin tfachim al zayin tfachim. That will be enough. And according to Rav Chaim Noah, the shear is much smaller. We'll do it in the next year. We'll get in a little more in protem of sizes. We'll get in exactly how much it means in our language. For those who listen in America, for the Shuirim, which means it's called inches and feet and yards and so on. But for now, we'll know that this is where the 2 Shuirim come. But, which is Negeya, so that has nothing to do with Chazal, with Gemara. That's just a cheshbon. Did they come to a conclusion that an agudel is 2.5 centimeter? Or is the agudel 2 centimeters? Without this whole sugya we learned today, you could have had a machlokes by a mechitza, by the size of a shiva tvachim for a sukkah. You have a machlokes. What is an agudel? So therefore, for agudelim, is it 8 centimeters or is it 10 centimeters according to the other shitta? Yeah, and so too, what is a tefach, and what is a 10 tvachim, and so on. But when it comes to the shear of revis, it gets a little complicated, because there, besides, so if you go like in the Rav Chaim Noah, then what happens? You come to the same shear, that you take such a cup that you make 2 centimeters an agudel, and you make the same cheshbon 2 times 2.7 of such agudlan, which is 2 centimeters an agudel. You're going to end up having a sheer normal beitza, a beitza and a half of our beitza and a half. And Rav Chaim Noah tainet that comes out, I think a beitza is around 57 centimeters squared, which centimeters squared is the same thing as cc or ml, talking the liter sprach, and therefore a beitza and a mechza would be 86 point something, which begematria kois. That's a good teremus man hashemayim. It's begematria kois, and according to him, that's the shear of a revius, and it's no stira between the volume shear and the shetach dik shear of the square centimeters, the agudlim shear. It does come the same. According to the Noida Yehuda, I think the Chazon Steinet, that it's 150 centimeters cubed, and therefore he says it's begematria kois godel, whatever. So we'll get into the more details, Mirz Hashem, in the next year, and the hemshech of this, and then we'll get also to what this means practically by us in kezayis, in matzah, morer, v'chulu. Hatzlacha Rabba.